March 23rd, 9 a.m. The explosion ripped through the compound with such ferocity that it felt like the earth itself had been torn open. A deafening roar shook the air, followed by a shockwave that slammed into me like a tidal wave. I stumbled forward, bracing myself against the barracks wall as a second explosion followed, closer this time, hurling debris into the sky. Smoke rose in thick, choking plumes, and the acrid stench of burning fuel and scorched metal filled the air. "Get down!" Price's voice cut through the chaos, her tone sharp and unyielding. Another blast thundered across the yard, shattering windows and sending a cascade of glass onto the ground. Somewhere to my left, a soldier screamed as shrapnel tore through the makeshift barricades. The world was a maelstrom of sound and fury, and amidst it all, a singular truth emerged. This was no accident. I ducked behind a stack of crates, my heart hammering as I scanned the smoke-shrouded perimeter. Shadows moved within the haze, indistinct yet deliberate. They darted with purpose, their movements too coordinated to be infected. A cold dread settled in my chest as the realization hit me. The enemy wasn't a mindless horde. It was human. "Who the hell are they?" Maria shouted, sliding into cover beside me. Her rifle was already up, her finger resting lightly on the trigger. Her sharp breaths mingled with the distant cries of alarm and the staccato bursts of gunfire. "Not infected," I muttered, narrowing my eyes as the shapes solidified. Armored figures emerged, their silhouettes cutting through the smoke like phantoms. These weren't scavengers or raiders. They were soldiers. Organized. Deadly. The first wave hit like a tidal surge. Bullets ricocheted off steel and stone, the air alive with the high-pitched whine of gunfire. The attackers moved with precision, their every step calculated to exploit a weakness. One vaulted over the barricade, landing with cat-like agility. Before he could raise his weapon, I swung my Halligan tool, the blow connecting with a sickening crunch. He crumpled, but there was no time to process the act. Another soldier was already climbing up, his rifle trained on me. "They're probing us," Calloway's voice crackled over the comms. There was strain in his tone, but also a grim certainty. "Testing our defenses." "Then we'd better pass the test," Price snapped. Her rifle barked, and two attackers fell, their bodies collapsing into the dirt. She pivoted smoothly, already lining up her next target. Around her, the defenders fought like cornered animals, their movements desperate yet fierce. Maria and I found a rhythm, covering each other as the attackers pressed closer. My arms burned with each swing of the Halligan tool, the impact reverberating up to my shoulders. Maria's rifle barked beside me, every shot deliberate and precise. Yet, despite our efforts, the tide showed no signs of abating. The attackers' precision was unnerving. They weren't just a ragtag group of mercenaries. They were professionals. Their movements were fluid, their strategy cohesive. Every push felt like a statement, a demonstration of power. A chill ran down my spine as the realization crystallized. This wasn't a raid. It was a message. "Pull back." Price's voice cut through the cacophony. "Regroup at the second line." We fell back, retreating toward the central yard. The compound's inner defenses loomed ahead, reinforced with sandbags and barricades hastily constructed over the past weeks. Smoke hung heavy in the air, burning my throat with each breath. Soldiers scrambled to cover the retreat, their faces pale and streaked with soot. Behind us, the attackers breached the first gate, their momentum unbroken. Harker's voice broke through the radio. "This isn't random. They're targeting your leadership. You need to get Price and the others out of there." "How do you know that?" Price's reply was sharp, skepticism lacing her tone even amidst the chaos. "Because it's what I do," Harker said, his voice calm yet grim. "And trust me, whoever's behind this, they think just like me." We reached the second line, but the reprieve was fleeting. The attackers advanced with relentless precision, their assault unyielding. I glanced at Maria, her face streaked with grime and blood. Her jaw was set, her eyes blazing with a fire that bordered on defiance. There was no room for fear now, only resolve. "Here they come." Tucker's voice boomed over the din. He leveled his shotgun, the blast echoing like a thunderclap. The nearest attacker crumpled, But the others pressed forward, undeterred. Hold the line. Price's command carried above the chaos. We don't give an inch. The battle became a brutal grind, every second stretching into an eternity. My muscles screamed in protest, each swing of the Halligan tool a desperate bid to hold the line. Maria's rifle barked beside me, her shots steady despite the chaos. The rhythm of the fight was relentless, a grim dance of survival played out against the backdrop of destruction. 9:30 a.m. A sharp whistle cut through the air, followed by a thunderous explosion that obliterated the barricade to our left. The force threw me to the ground, my ears ringing as debris rained down. Dazed, I looked up to see a massive figure emerging from the smoke. His armor was thick and battered, his face obscured by a mask. He moved with an unnerving calm, his weapon raised with deadly intent. Before he could fire, a sharp crack rang out. Blood bloomed across his chest as he staggered and fell. Maria stood behind him, her rifle still smoking. "Stay with me," she said, offering her hand. Her grip was firm as she hauled me to my feet, her eyes scanning the chaos for the next threat. I nodded, retrieving my tool as we regrouped. Around us, the tide of attackers seemed to falter. Their movements lost some of their precision, their momentum ebbing. For a fleeting moment, hope flickered. Then, over the roar of the battle, a new sound emerged, a low, guttural growl that sent a chill through my body. From the smoke, a figure emerged. It was larger than the others, faster, more lethal. Its glowing scars pulsed like molten veins, casting an eerie light across the battlefield. An alpha. "Oh, hell," Maria muttered, her rifle snapping up. "We've got a problem." I tightened my grip on the Halligan tool, every instinct screaming at me to flee. But there was nowhere to go. The alpha's roar shook the ground, its presence a terrifying reminder of the darkness we faced. The fragile alliance we tried to forge hung by a thread, and in that moment it was clear. This fight was far from over. The alpha's roar resonated through the compound like the toll of a bell, announcing doom. Its molten scars glowed ominously, illuminating the surrounding smoke and ash. Every soldier around me froze, their collective breath caught in the back of their throats. This wasn't just another enemy. This was a predator, faster and deadlier than anything we'd faced before. "Form up," Price bellowed, snapping the momentary paralysis that gripped us. Her rifle was already trained on the creature, her stance rigid with determination. "Do not let it break through. If it gets inside the compound, we're done." The alpha moved with terrifying speed, its bulk belying its agility. It lunged forward, smashing through a stack of sandbags as if they were paper. Soldiers opened fire, the sharp staccato of gunfire filling the air, but the creature barely flinched. Bullets struck its thick hide, sparking against the glowing scars that pulsed like molten rivers beneath its skin. It was as if every shot only fueled its rage. Maria was the first to react. She knelt, bracing her rifle against her shoulder as she unleashed a barrage of precise shots. "Aim for the scars," she shouted, her voice rising over the din. "They're the weak spots." Her words spurred the others into action. A coordinated hail of bullets followed, each shot aimed at the alpha's glowing scars. The creature howled, its massive body jerking with the impact of each hit. But it didn't stop. Instead, it turned its glowing eyes toward the soldiers, its gaze locking onto each target with deadly intent. I tightened my grip on the Halligan tool, my palms slick with sweat. The alpha's gaze settled on me, and for a moment, everything else faded. Its eyes were intelligent, calculating, as if it recognized me as a threat. My heart hammered in my chest, but I held my ground. Running would only provoke it. "Get its attention off the gate," Calloway yelled, his voice strained but determined. He pulled the pin from a grenade and hurled it toward the creature. The explosion rocked the ground, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. The alpha staggered, its molten scars flickering like dying embers. For a brief moment, it seemed almost vulnerable. But then it roared, a guttural sound that vibrated in my chest. With a burst of speed, it tore through the remnants of the barricade, its claws slicing through steel and wood like butter. The sound was a primal declaration, a challenge that rattled every nerve in my body. The Alpha charged, its movements too fast for something its size. Soldiers scattered, some diving for cover, while others fired frantically. One man wasn't quick enough. The Alpha's massive claw swiped through the air, catching him mid-run. He crumpled to the ground, lifeless, his weapon clattering to the dirt. "Tucker, get that turret online," Price shouted, her voice tinged with urgency. The desperation in her tone was a stark contrast to her usual composure. Tucker, limping from an earlier injury, dragged himself toward the nearest turret. Bullets rained around him as the attackers renewed their assault, their focus split between overwhelming the defenders and keeping the Alpha in motion. I rushed to cover him, swinging the Halligan tool at anyone who got too close. My muscles screamed in protest, but adrenaline kept me moving. The turret roared to life with a deafening whir, spitting a hail of bullets at the Alpha. The creature reeled, its glowing scars dimming under the relentless assault. For a moment, hope flickered. Then, with a powerful lunge, the Alpha tore through the turret, its claws reducing the heavy machinery to twisted metal. Tucker was thrown back by the force of the impact, landing in a heap. He groaned, clutching his side, but he was alive. "It's too strong," Maria shouted, her voice cracking with frustration. "We need more firepower." Calloway hurled another grenade, the explosion engulfing the Alpha in fire and smoke. The creature roared again, a sound of pure fury and pain. It staggered, its movements erratic as blood, thick and dark, poured from its wounds. But it didn't fall. "Over here, you bastard," I shouted, swinging the Halligan tool with every ounce of strength I had. The blow connected with one of its glowing scars, and the creature howled in pain. Its massive frame turned toward me, its molten eyes burning with fury. "What the hell are you doing?" Maria yelled, her rifle still firing. "Buying us time." I shot back, barely dodging as the Alpha's claw swiped through the air where I'd been standing moments before. My breaths came in ragged gasps, but I didn't stop. I swung again, aiming for the scars along its shoulder. The tool struck true, and the Alpha roared, staggering backward. Price joined the fray, her rifle trained on the creature's head. "Keep it distracted," she ordered. "We're taking this thing down now." The remaining soldiers rallied, their gunfire converging on the Alpha. Maria moved with precision, her shots timed to exploit every moment of vulnerability. Calloway launched another grenade, the explosion sending the creature crashing to its knees. Its molten scars flickered weakly, the light within them dimming. "It's weakening," someone shouted, and a surge of determination swept through the defenders. I swung my Halligan tool again, this time aiming for its leg. The blow connected, and the Alpha collapsed to the ground, its roars fading into a guttural wheeze. 10 a.m. With a final, ear-splitting scream, the Alpha fell silent. Its massive frame hit the ground with a resounding thud, sending up a cloud of dust. For a moment, no one moved. The battlefield was eerily quiet, save for the crackling of flames and the distant cries of the wounded. Price lowered her rifle, her face streaked with sweat and soot. "Is it dead?" she asked, her voice hoarse. Maria approached cautiously, her rifle trained on the Alpha's still form. She prodded it with the barrel, then stepped back quickly. "It's dead," she confirmed, her tone wary. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. From the distance, a new sound emerged, the faint, unmistakable hum of engines. I turned toward the horizon, my chest tightening as a new convoy appeared, its vehicles bristling with weaponry. "We're not done yet," Price said, her voice hardening as she stared into the distance. "Everyone, regroup and rearm. This fight is far from over." The hum of the approaching engines grew louder, their deep rumble cutting through the eerie quiet left in the Alpha's wake. Soldiers scrambled to reinforce the barricades, dragging sandbags and salvaged steel beams into place. Despite the victory over the Alpha, there was no relief in anyone's eyes. The adrenaline from the battle was still coursing through our veins, but it was being replaced by a grim realization. Whatever came next might be worse. Price stood at the center of the yard, barking orders. Her face was a mask of focus, though the tension in her jaw betrayed her unease. "Maria, Calloway, get eyes on the convoy. I want to know what we're up against," she commanded. "Everyone else, lock it down. We're not losing this compound." I tightened my grip on the Halligan tool, my knuckles white. My muscles ached, and every breath felt heavier than the last, but I couldn't rest. Not yet. The faint silhouette of the convoy appeared on the horizon, a line of armored vehicles cutting through the haze of smoke and dust. The lead truck bore a makeshift ram on its front, and from the size of the convoy, they weren't here to negotiate. "Looks like 6 vehicles," Maria reported over the radio, her voice steady but tense. "2 armored, for troop transports. Can't confirm numbers, but they're coming in fast." "We don't have time for numbers," Calloway added. His voice clipped. "We've got to slow them down before they reach the gates." The first shot rang out from Maria's position, the sharp crack of her rifle signaling the start of a new fight. The bullet struck the windshield of the lead truck, spiderwebbing the glass but not stopping its advance. More shots followed, soldiers on the walls joining the barrage, but the armored vehicles shrugged off the gunfire as if it were nothing more than rain. "Grenades!" Price shouted. "Hit the tires, hit the engines. Anything to slow them down." Calloway responded first, hurling a grenade with precision. It landed under the second vehicle in line, detonating with a deafening roar. The truck skidded to the side, smoke pouring from its undercarriage, but the others didn't stop. If anything, they accelerated, the lead vehicle's ram lowering like the head of a charging bull. "Brace for impact," someone yelled, and I dove behind a stack of crates as the first truck plowed into the gates. The sound of metal tearing was almost drowned out by the shouts and screams that followed. The gates held for only a moment before they buckled, the force of the impact sending debris flying. The crash reverberated through my chest, a grim reminder of how vulnerable we were. I stole a glance at Maria, who was already shifting her aim toward the next vehicle. Her jaw was set, her expression a portrait of determination. Chaos erupted as the enemy poured through the breach. Armored soldiers disembarked from the transports, their movements swift and disciplined. These weren't scavengers or raiders. They were trained, coordinated, and heavily armed. The defenders opened fire, the compound erupting into a cacophony of gunfire and shouts. I swung the Halligan tool at the first enemy who got too close, the impact sending him sprawling. Another followed, raising his weapon, but I drove the tool into his chest before he could fire. Around me, the battle raged. Soldiers fought desperately to hold the line, but the enemy's precision was overwhelming. "Fall back to the second line," Price ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Don't let them split us up." Maria covered our retreat, her rifle picking off targets with deadly accuracy. Calloway lobbed another grenade, the explosion buying us a few precious seconds to regroup. We retreated toward the inner yard, the remaining defenders forming a defensive circle around the command tent. The fight grew more desperate with each passing minute. The enemy pressed forward relentlessly, their numbers seemingly endless. Price fought like a woman possessed, her rifle barking in short, controlled bursts. Maria's steady aim continued to thin the ranks of the attackers, but it wasn't enough. "We're running out of ammo," a soldier shouted, his voice tinged with panic. "Make every shot count," Price snapped, "and hold your ground." I caught sight of Harker in the chaos, his face grim as he fought alongside us. He wasn't one of ours, but in that moment, it didn't matter. He fired his weapon with precision, his movements calculated and efficient. If he had a plan, he wasn't sharing it, but his presence bolstered the defenders. "Watch the east flank," he barked, his voice cutting through the noise. His warning came just in time. I turned to see a trio of enemies scaling the remains of the wall. Without hesitation, I charged, swinging the Halligan tool in a wide arc. The first went down hard, the second stumbling back under the force of my strike. Maria's rifle barked, dropping the third before he could reach the ground. 10:35 a.m. An explosion to the east sent a shockwave through the compound, the ground trembling beneath our feet. The enemy had breached another section of the wall. Price cursed under her breath, her eyes darting between the advancing forces and the new opening. "If we don't stop them here, we lose the compound," she said, her voice low but resolute. "Maria, Tucker, you're with me. Calloway, hold the center. Don't let them through." "What about me?" I asked, gripping the Halligan tool tightly. Price looked at me, her expression softening for a fraction of a second. "You hold this line, no matter what." She didn't wait for a response, charging toward the breach with Maria and Tucker in tow. I turned back to the battle, my chest tightening as the enemy closed in. The defenders around me were bloodied and battered, but they didn't waver. This was our home, and we weren't giving it up without a fight. I glanced at the command tent, where Green was frantically working on the laptop, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Whatever data she was pulling from the drive, it seemed to be our last hope. I only prayed she'd finish before the line broke. The hum of engines had been replaced by the clash of steel, the crack of gunfire, and the roar of explosions. It was chaos, pure and unrelenting. And in the midst of it all, a single thought kept me moving. We couldn't lose. Not here. Not now.